Hi. So every year that passes by that we recognize Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it makes me more cognizant and even in more awe of what he was able to accomplish in only 39 years of life. With the FBI, white supremacists, just the racist systems that were attacking him from every angle, it's amazing what he was able to accomplish in such a short amount of time. He was extremely courageous, selfless, and intelligent. He understood a lot of things that you just couldn't learn in a school book, right? He was very articulate, a great orator, but he was street smart, right? He was a reverend, but he understood people, he understood the politics, and he understood what it meant to be a leader and how to kind of be that walking symbol of inspiration and hope. And he wasn't just standing up for Black Americans, right? He was a fighter for the poor. Dr. King organized the Poor People's Campaign, whose mission was to address economic inequality, and that was for all US citizens. He really had a heart for the poor. He realized you can't separate the discrimination just based on color, that was part of the poverty. So he spoke up really to represent all poor people, to try to get them you know a fair shake. And he understood that having a decent job, that you worked in a safe environment for fair pay, was the foundation for any family to have some stability. He also knew that you needed to have safe and clean housing and access to food and a need to feel safe where you live. Obviously, that hasn't changed today. But what's interesting is that there are more middle class Black families in America, and black and brown, more today than there were when Dr. King was alive. But the interesting fact is that in 1960, there was only a gap of 27% between white families and Black families when it came to home ownership. But today, in 2020, well, today it's now 2021, but the data from 2020 is showing that there's actually a 30% gap now between white families and Black families when it comes to home ownership. So the gap is widening from a home ownership position. And we know that home ownership is a huge factor when it comes to wealth. So we see that there are still obstacles with Black families being able to, build wealth. And it seems like back in the 60s, when it was actually legal to discriminate against Black families, they were able to acquire and hold on to their properties, maybe with less of a challenge, if we could say it that way, than today. The other day, I was reading an article in CNBC, and it was talking about a Black family. They bought their brownstone in Bed-Stuy in 1985 for $91,000. And so that was over 30 years ago. And so it makes me, and the article was talking about the fact that the son, who has now come home from college and he's a musician, and because of COVID, it's been tough for him to get work. They have 3 tenants in the home, just trying to, make sure they can hold on to the home. And so my first thought was that they've had this property for over 30 years. Why is there still a mortgage? Right? What kind of financial decisions were happening where the family does not yet own that property? How is there still a mortgage? And how is it to the point where they have to bring in tenants and, they're just barely trying to hang on to hold on to this property? Now, obviously now in 2020, we know that brownstones in that area are probably selling for $1 million. So, the value of that property has like 10x for them, but they're still struggling to hold on. So was it that they, refinanced and pulled money out and then there was a problem? Or, I can only make assumptions about the family's situation, but it's concerning to me because this is a family who, if things continue the way that they are, they may possibly lose that home. And so that son, who they talked about in the article, he may lose that, that property, the whole family. And so, it's one of those things that for me is really important in the work that I do, is that I am providing education, Yes, I, talk about great strategies and ways that you can grow your money. But I think at the basic level, what most people need to understand about their finances is protection, asset protection. And protection comes in the form of insurance. There's obviously various types of insurance, but one of the key ones that I think of in this scenario is life insurance, right? So again, I don't know what the situation is with this family, but perhaps if they, had life insurance as well and they were building up some money in their cash value, they'd be able to pull from some of that to pay down and catch up and, to make sure that their property is not going to be in jeopardy. I was on Clubhouse. It's another social media app, new app that's out. And I was in a discussion where it was predominantly Black people in this particular room, and they were talking about basically like wealth. And someone had brought up the movie Soul Food. And Soul Food is a movie came out, I think, in 1997. So it's been a few years, but I think a lot of people are familiar with it. And in this movie, the mother, let's just say, the matriarch, she has this home. It's the family home. They have soul food dinner every Sunday. So, all the kids and their kids come and they have, this family gathering on Sunday. So this home, this house is so important. It's been in the family for generations, and it's not something that you would want to lose. And so there's a part where Terry, who's played by Vanessa Williams, is the oldest. I think she's the oldest child, but she's an attorney. And the other kids are they're all adult kids, but they're all kind of looking to her to have all the answers and be able to take care of things. And she assumingly makes the most money of all of them, and so they just think she's just going to take care of things. And the discussion came up to say that a lot of families are that way. There isn't necessarily a will or a trust or any type of discussion at all that has taken place between the generations to say, this is what we expect to happen or what we want to happen when we pass away. Here's this insurance that's in place to make sure that if you need to, you can pay the house off, or you can set this up to make payments for the property taxes. Here's what the property taxes are, here's when they need to be paid. Just some of those basic discussions. Maybe it's an unexpected death of one of the, parents or the spouse, one of the homeowners, and now the other spouse, maybe they didn't work, and now they had to figure out how to, keep up these payments. So maybe they did work, but it took both incomes to be able to pay for the mortgage. So what's going to happen now if there's no life insurance? Are they going to have to sell the house and find somewhere else to live? Or if there's life insurance, it at least can, replace the income that was lost from that, the partner who passed away. Maybe if it is like one of the homeowners who passes away, or maybe let's say it's a parent, right? If it's say it's your parent who one of your parents passes away, and now the other parent isn't really able to live on their own. Maybe they need to now come live with you. Well, there's a whole cost to that, right? There's going to be a cost to kind of pack up things, move them to you. Maybe you have to renovate your home to accommodate your parent. Maybe there's going to be some, now you need to hire a nurse to come in a few days a week because that's what the other spouse was doing. There's so many different things that can happen. Maybe you're in such grief that you can't go back to work after a week. Maybe you need some time. Maybe you and your kids need some time to adjust to this new normal. And if you have life insurance, there's money there to make sure that the expenses are covered, and you don't have to have that concern. Maybe the person was ill for a long time and there's really, really high medical bills. Well, the life insurance could possibly take care of that. So I could think of 100 different scenarios, but ultimately, in this situation, we're talking about passing on wealth, after you pass away. But I'm also trying to refer to the way that you can actually leverage life insurance while you're alive, so that if you find yourself in a situation like the couple in Bed-Stuy, who's like just praying to hold on to their $1 million brownstone, there are alternatives, there are solutions, but a lot of times we don't know. And particularly families of color just don't know, right? The education system here, particularly public education, is just basically absent of any type of financial education. And a lot of the financial education that we get is from commercials, right? It's really from commercials or watching cable financial channels or reading blogs. It's not necessarily, it's kind of sponsored content, right? It may not necessarily be the best advice that is in your best interest, right? It could be in Wall Street's best interest, maybe the bank's best interest, but maybe not yours. So you really want to make sure that you're getting good information, solid information. And as I always say, you're getting the whole truth about a situation so that you can make an informed decision. Okay. So I guess taking it back to Dr. King, I just think it's really important for us to recognize all the work that he did. Obviously, he was, the king of the civil rights movement of the 1960s. But I think that we owe it to him to make sure that, all that he inspired the generations to do, all he did to really to bring about change, those are things that we should all continue to do. I was very inspired by, I was not inspired by the lynching of George Floyd last summer, but I was very inspired by the diversity of the people marching in, in unity against the deadly force that was used, and really just to say enough is enough and it's time for a change, and understanding and acknowledging the systemic, racism that exists. And I hope that we can all do our parts in no matter what area, in life that we can make that difference. If you, ask your HR departments, can we have some financial education made available to us? Ask for this type of information. Speak up for people when you see that they're being discriminated against. Make sure that you're not just doing what's always been done. If things can be done better and things can be done more equally and more fair for all your clients or all your customers or all your vendors, whatever the situation is, be cognizant of that. We all have to be more intentional about how are we going to do things to make things better. We saw last week, or whatever that was, on January 6th, what happens when people are disenfranchised for a long time and feel like they've been ignored and been told lies about a system, right? It can become violent and it can be disarming. And we don't want that to become the norm, right? We don't want that to become the norm. We all should be inspired and motivated by what Dr. King was able to do in such a short time, and think about what can we do in our lifetimes to help our fellow neighbors. Okay. Anyways, I hope that you will enjoy today, Dr. Martin Luther King holiday. I hope that you'll take some time to reflect on what he did, how instrumental he was in American history. And, again, what can you do? I will talk to you soon. Take care.